They forced me to be an alien's comfort pet, until a human bought me and gave me back my name. The cold wind blew across the auction yard. Strange lights flashed over the metal walls. Dozens of alien creatures walked around, dressed in expensive robes. They were here to buy slaves. In the middle of the yard, behind electric bars, stood Lyra. She was a human girl, skin pale from years without sunlight, eyes full of fear, lips cracked from thirst. Her hands were chained. Her clothes were thin and dirty. Her bare feet stood on freezing metal. She didn't speak. She had learned. That speaking brought pain. Lot number 87, the alien auctioneer announced in a deep robotic voice. Pure human, female, high body heat, strong heart, silent, perfect for warming nests. The crowd whispered in alien tongues. Some of them leaned forward to see better. One blue-skinned alien female pointed and asked, "Does she cry?" "No." The auctioneer replied, "This one gave up long ago." Lyra didn't move. She stared at the ground. Her ears picked up pieces of the alien language. She had learned enough to understand one thing. They didn't see her as a person. She was just a heater. A living blanket. Something to keep their alien beds warm. A tall alien woman with silver scales walked forward. She wore golden armor, and her eyes glowed like fire. She was a matriarch from the Northern Empire, rich, powerful, feared. "I'll take her," the matriarch said. "My sleeping pod gets too cold at night." "Sold," the auctioneer roared. The electric bars opened. Two guards grabbed Lyra roughly and pulled her forward. She didn't fight. She had no strength left. As they dragged her away, she heard the auctioneer call for the next slave. A child, another human. Lyra's heart broke, but she didn't cry. Not anymore. The matriarch's palace stood on a mountain of ice. The sky was always gray. The wind howled through the walls. Lyra was taken to a tall room made of black stone. There was one large sleeping pod in the center. It was round, covered in soft alien furs. "This will be your place," said a cold voice behind her. It was the matriarch herself. "Every night you will lie in my bed. You will give me warmth. That is your only purpose." Lyra was pushed onto the pod. She curled into a ball. The matriarch climbed in beside her. Her skin was ice cold. She wrapped her long arms around Lyra's body. "You humans are like fire," the matriarch whispered. "Soft, warm, and silent when trained." Lyra stared at the ceiling. She didn't reply. She never did. Days turned into weeks. Nights turned into years. Lyra became part of the bed. She was never spoken to, never fed properly, never allowed to leave the room. She saw other humans once in a while, cleaning, working, crawling. None of them looked up. Everyone was broken. Lyra stopped counting time. She stopped dreaming. She stopped hoping. Until one night, a strange sound came from the wall. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Lyra blinked. It was not the wind. She sat up slowly. Her body ached. Her skin was red from the cold. Another tap, 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 tap. Tap. She leaned closer to the wall. Was it a pattern? Suddenly, a whisper came through a small air vent above her head. "Are you human?" Lyra gasped. It was a voice. A real voice. And it was speaking English. She hesitated, then whispered, "Yes." The voice replied, "You're not alone." Her hands began to shake. Not from cold, but from something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. The next morning, the guards came in as usual. They didn't notice the tiny scratch marks Lyra had made near the vent. They didn't hear the tapping, but Lyra noticed everything. Now. Someone else was here. Another human, and they were awake. The alien palace was always silent during the night. But tonight, through the small air vent above her bed, Lyra heard something that froze her breath. Not the wind, not the guards, but a human voice. Lyra sat up fast. Her heartbeat raced in. Her chest like it had just woken up from a long sleep. Her back was sore, her ribs ached, but her ears, they were alive. She whispered softly into the vent. Who are you?" A pause, then the voice came again. "My name is Yalan," the voice said. "I'm human. I've been here a long time. I thought I was the only one left." Lyra looked around the cold stone room. The matriarch was still asleep beside her, her arms wrapped around empty air. Lyra had slowly slipped away from the sleeping pod once the alien entered her deep hibernation. This was her only moment of freedom, minutes, maybe seconds. "I thought I was alone," Lyra whispered. "I know," Yalan replied. "That's how they break us." She pressed her ear closer to the vent. "Where are you?" she asked. "Somewhere below," Yalan said. "They keep us in the lower chambers. I work the heat tunnels. But I listen, I watch. I saw you being brought in months ago." Lyra's breath shook. "You saw me?" "You never cried," he said. "That's how I knew you were still strong." Those words made her chest ache. No one had said anything kind to her in years. No one had seen her as anything but a tool. But now someone had noticed her silence and called it strength. "I don't feel strong," she whispered. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You're awake now, that's enough." The next few nights, they spoke through the vent in secret. Only for a few minutes. Only in whispers. But each time, Lyra felt something changing inside her. She learned that Yalan had once been part of a rebel crew of humans, caught during a failed escape from the northern mines. Most were killed. He was spared because of his knowledge of heat systems, ironically. He helped maintain the same tunnels that warmed the beds of alien masters. "I fix the fire they use to keep you warm," he said one night. "But I can also make it burn them." "How?" Lyra asked. "There are tunnels under the sleeping halls, old escape routes. Half collapsed, but I've cleared one." Lyra's eyes widened. "Where does it lead?" "Freedom," he said. "If we plan it right." One morning, after a long freezing night beside the matriarch, Lyra woke with pain in her bones, but a map forming in her mind. Each pipe she'd seen. Each step the guards took. Each moment the heat shut off, even for a second. She wasn't just a body anymore. She was watching. That evening, Lyra made a risky move. She dropped a piece of cloth into the heating grate near her pod, blocking it slightly. A faint trail of warm air hissed into the room. The matriarch shifted in her sleep, muttering in her language. The next day, 2 guards came in, confused. "System glitch," one said. "Too much heat in the queen's chamber." They opened the grate and checked. Lyra pretended to sleep, but watched with one half-closed eye. There beneath the vent was a small black tunnel. The warmth wasn't just from the fire below. It was from the humans working it. And maybe, just maybe, there was a way through that night. When Yalan spoke again, his voice was closer. "You found the lower vent, didn't you?" He said, amused. "Yes," she whispered. "Then you're ready." "Ready for what?" "To stop being a bed warmer," he said, "and become the fire instead." Lyra stared at the ceiling. The stars weren't visible from the alien palace. But she imagined them anyway. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a voice. A plan. And for the first time in years. "A name, Lyra," she said. "What?" Yalan asked. "My name. I want you to say it." There was a pause. "Then, Lyra," he said, "we're going to burn this place down." Beneath the soft alien furs and gold-framed sleeping pod, her fingers touched something cold, flat, metal, and not part of the bed. A secret hatch. It had been there the whole time. The nights had become different for Lyra. She still shared the bed with the alien matriarch, her body used like a living heater. But her mind was no longer silent. She counted steps. She memorized the clicks of guards' boots. She timed when the ventilation fan turned on and off. She even noticed how one guard always dozed off after drinking thick green liquid. During his night shift, every moment was now a piece of a puzzle, and tonight, something new happened. Lyra waited until the matriarch fell into her cold, deep alien sleep. Then, as softly as she could, she peeled away the furs and reached underneath the sleeping pod. Her hand brushed across the hard surface of the bed frame, then stopped. There was a panel, slightly raised. Her fingers trembled as she pressed. Against it, click, it moved. Her heart jumped. She lifted the panel just a little. Beneath it, instead of wires or insulation, was a black tunnel, circular, narrow. A soft wave of warm air rose from below. The heat tunnels. This was it. The passage Yalan had told her about. She looked behind her. The matriarch's face was still and peaceful, her long silver arms twitching slightly in sleep. Lyra hesitated, then crawled halfway into the tunnel. It was dark. The walls were metal but warm. She heard the sound of pipes groaning in the distance, then faintly a voice. "You made it." It was Yalan. She crawled deeper until she reached a small platform in the tunnel. There, sitting against the wall, was a man, dirty, tired, but alive. A human. Jlen. He looked older than she expected. His skin was burned in places from the heat. His beard was patchy. But his eyes, they were sharp, alert, focused. "You found the bed hatch," he said. "I always guessed the sleeping pods were built over the old vents." "They were," she said. "No one ever checked underneath." "They never think tools will check," he said with a smile. He showed her a map he'd drawn on a piece of old metal with a piece of scorched charcoal. "This tunnel connects 6 of the Queen's chambers," he explained. "All of them have humans in them, bed warmers like you." Lyra's eyes widened. 6? "But we never see each other." "That's on purpose," Yalan said. "They keep us apart to break us faster." "Can we reach them?" "One at a time," he nodded. "I've already reached 2. They're waiting." Lyra stared at the map. "And then what?" "What do we do with a bunch of freezing humans?" Yalan leaned forward. "We don't stay human heaters anymore. We turn the heat against them." Back in her chamber, Lyra returned before morning light. She cleaned herself quickly, climbed back into the pod. The matriarch didn't notice anything, but Lyra's eyes didn't close that night. She was wide awake, planning over the next week. She slipped into the tunnel whenever she could. Some nights for just 2 minutes, others for 10. She learned to slide the panel open without making the sound. She met the others, humans who had names and stories just like her. One woman from Brazil, one boy from Sudan, one quiet man from Russia. They had all been taken, all forced to warm beds. Now they were waking up. Jalen taught them how to move between vents, how to listen for guard patterns, how to find the old switches in the heating tunnels, emergency controls hidden from aliens. "We're not ready to escape yet," he told them. "But we can prepare the fire." One night, Lyra returned from the tunnel, her legs sore and body shaking. As she lay beside the matriarch again, something strange happened. The alien whispered in her sleep, "Warm, little flame, don't go out." Lyra turned her head slowly, watching the alien's face. She had once cried under this woman's arms, once begged in silence for death. Now she watched her with different eyes. "You called me a flame," Lyra thought. "You were right." She waited for morning. She waited for the right night, the one where the cold would be the strongest, where every alien would need their bed warmer the most, where heat would be most precious. And that's when they would strike. The sleeping pod was warmer than usual, too warm. Lyra slipped her hand beneath the covers and felt it, a red glow, pulsing softly from the grate. It wasn't the heating system. It was a warning. Tonight was the night. For weeks they had waited for this moment. Yalan had told them, the coldest night of the cycle. the aliens will hibernate deeply. All vents will blast heat. That's when we light the match. They didn't have weapons. They didn't have strength, but they had heat. They had timing. And they had rage. Lyra sat in the pod beside the matriarch. The alien woman was already drifting into her deep frost sleep. Her breath was slow. Her claws curled lightly around the bed fur. Lyra had always hated this moment, being wrapped like an object. But tonight, it felt different. Because this bed was no longer her prison. It was her battlefield. Underneath the pod, Yalin and the others had connected small heat cores, stolen and rerouted from the tunnels. Nothing explosive. Just hot enough to start a fire under the nesting fabric once the vents surged. Each human bedwarmer had a part to play. Each had a heat core placed. If even one failed, the alarm would go off. If they all succeeded, the palace would burn from beneath. Lyra looked at the alien sleeping beside her and whispered, "You called me a flame. Tonight I show you how much fire a human can hold." Far below, Yalin was crawling through the tunnels, sweat dripping down his face. He reached the main valve, a massive wheel that controlled the direction of emergency. Heat flows. If turned, it would send a blast of scalding air through every old vent connected to the pods. He put his hands on it and took a breath. For every human who froze in silence, he whispered. He turned the wheel. The heat roared to life. Above, the first scream came not from a human, but from an alien queen in pod room 3. Her fur bedding caught fire instantly. She rolled out in panic, confused and half asleep, her skin blistering from sudden heat. Guards rushed in, but the same fire burst from the vent beneath their feet, lighting their robes. Chaos began. Lyra heard the explosion before she felt the shake. Then smoke filled her chamber. The matriarch awoke with a loud growl, leaping from the burning bed. "You!" She snarled at Lyra, but Lyra was already crawling under the pod, pushing through the hatch. The matriarch grabbed her ankle. Lyra kicked hard, twisting, screaming not in fear but in anger. "No more!" The alien's fingers slipped. Lyra vanished into the tunnel. Below, Yalin was waiting. "She saw you?" he asked as they ran through the narrow path. "She grabbed me," Lyra gasped. "She's awake," but the fire reached her room. Then, "It's done," he said. "We move to phase 2. They reached the central shaft. One by one, the other humans arrived, burned, coughing but smiling. Together, they activated the last switch, overloading the main heating core. A powerful blast surged through the palace. Pipes burst. Ceilings cracked. Floors burned. The cold mountain became a furnace. In the confusion, many guards tried to flee, but the paths were blocked. Their ships overheated. Their nests were ablaze. They had never expected their own comfort system, the warmth they built on the backs of humans, to turn into a weapon. They had never expected bedwarmers to become revolutionaries. Lyra stood at the edge of the tunnel, watching the palace burn through a broken vent. The flames danced in her eyes. Yalin came beside her, holding out a cloth mask. "We're heading out through the outer cave. Fresh air. Then freedom." She looked at him and said, "Did we win?" "We started the fire," he said. "That's enough for now." But Lyra wasn't done. She turned to face the tunnel behind her. "I'm going back," she said. "What? Why?" "There are still more humans in the upper halls. Still beds that didn't burn." Yalin stared at her, then slowly smiled. "You're not just a flame," he said. "You're a wildfire." Lyra nodded. "Let's burn every last bed." When the smoke cleared and the fires cooled, a new figure stood at the gates of the burned palace. He was human, but wore no chains. He wasn't trembling. He wasn't silent. He had come by choice, and he refused the warmth of any alien bed. Mountain Palace, still SMOLDR. Ash floated through the air like dark snow. Melted banners hung from the walls. Most of the alien elite had escaped, or died in their own flames. But the humans had survived. Lyra stood beside the edge of the cliff tunnel, looking down at the valley. She had led others out through the old escape routes. Yalan followed behind, bandaged but smiling. For the first time in years, they were breathing fresh air. No chains. No pods. No silence. But then, a sound broke through the calm. A ship. A sleek, black vessel with human markings cut through the sky and landed just beyond the ruined palace. The humans ducked for cover. More slavers? One whispered. No, Yalan muttered, staring hard. That's not alien tech. That's Earth-made. Lyra narrowed her eyes. Earth? From the ship stepped a tall man in black armor, wearing a long coat that moved like a shadow in the wind. His beard was trimmed, and a single silver stripe crossed his chest. 2 human soldiers followed behind him. But he walked alone. Unarmed. Fearless. He entered the broken gates of the palace, stepping over rubble and alien bodies. Inside, the surviving guards pointed weapons, but froze. The man raised a single badge. I am Commander Brax of the Outer Colonies, he said in a cold voice. I am here under the Intergalactic Treaty of Human Protection. This structure violated 5 laws. Its leadership will now face judgment. The guards, still dazed from the fires, lowered their weapons. They had no orders. No matriarch. No power left. Lyra and Yalan watched from the upper ledge of the escape path. He's one of us? She asked. Not like us, Yalan said. He's never been chained. Never slept in a pod. But yes, he's human. Commander Brax moved through the halls like a storm. He documented everything. Photos of burned sleeping pods, piles of scorched chains, alien bedding filled with heat core wires. He didn't flinch. He didn't pause. He didn't sit. An alien servant offered him a resting pod. He simply said, I don't sleep in beds built on pain. The next morning, Brax set up a camp outside the palace ruins. He called for the freed humans. Most were afraid. They had never spoken to a free human before. But Lyra stepped forward. She stood in front of him, chin high. You've seen what they did, she said. You're here now. But where were you before? Brax looked at her. I was fighting on a different front, he said. The outer colonies are waking up. We've started hunting down slave networks. This was one of the biggest. She didn't blink. And now? What happens to us? You'll be taken to Haven, he said. It's a free human world. You'll have homes, rights, no chains. Yalan stepped beside her. And the ones who burned this place? Will we be punished? Brax paused. Then said, No, you lit the fire that the galaxy will remember. That night, Brax asked Lyra a question. Why didn't you escape when you had the chance? She stared at the stars and replied, Because not all humans were free yet. Some still slept in their chains. I couldn't leave them behind. He nodded slowly, then offered her something she never expected. Come with me, he said. Not just to rest, but to lead. Lead? You know how they think. You survived what most couldn't. I need voices like yours in the council. Fighters, witnesses. Lyra looked at her burned hands. I'm not a leader, she said. You're wrong, Brax said. You led a fire. Now help us lead a future. As dawn broke over the frozen hills, a new banner was raised above the blackened palace. It was simple. A red flame over a broken chain, and beneath it, humans gathered not in silence, but in strength. The metal cuffs had scarred her wrists for years. Now they lay on the ground, melted, twisted, silent. But freedom wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because when you melt chains, you must decide what to do with the fire. The cold wind howled. Through the mountains again. The fire was gone. The palace stood in ruin. But the memories didn't burn with it. They clung to Lyra's skin like frost. She sat alone beside the melted cuffs, her own. The ones that once held her to a bed night after night, as her body gave heat and her soul froze inside. She had burned the bed. She had walked away from the cell, but her heart still carried the weight. Inside the rebel camp, whispers had begun. Some humans wanted revenge, not justice, revenge. The surviving aliens' young, injured servant class were now captives. They had served the elites. Some had abused. Others had obeyed in fear. Yalan stepped into the room, his face tight. "They want to execute the alien steward," he said. "The one who cleaned the chambers. The one who used to slap the little boy if he cried." Lyra looked up slowly. "Did he kill anyone?" "No," Yalan admitted. "But he let it happen. He served them without question." Lyra stood up. Her voice was calm, but sharp like glass. "Then we judge him. Not like they judged us. Not with fear. With truth." The camp held its first trial. The steward stood shaking, head bowed. Humans watched from all sides, eyes filled with pain, scars, anger. Lyra asked the questions. "Did you know what they did to us?" "Yes," the alien said quietly. "Why didn't you stop them?" "I couldn't," he whispered. "If I spoke, they would have thrown me in the cold chambers. I'm weak, I admit it." Lyra stared into his eyes. Not evil, not brave, just broken, like she once was. She turned to the crowd. "Then let him work for the ones he failed," she said. "He will cook for the freed children. He will build their beds, and he will sleep last every night until they forgive him." Some cheered. Some grumbled. But no one stopped her. Because she was no longer a slave, she was a voice. Later, Commander Brax approached her at the edge of the ruined hall. "You could have let them kill him," he said. "Many would have." Lyra's voice was steady. "Then we would be no different than our masters." Brax nodded. "You're ready. For what?" she asked. He handed her a small datapad. "Transmission logs from the palace. Before the fire, your matriarch queen sent out a signal to her sister empire. Reinforcements. They'll arrive in 4 days." Lyra's jaw tightened. "So it's not over." "No," Brax said. "But this time, we fight as equals." In the secret forge beneath the mountain, humans worked fast. They had melted old alien tools into spears, shields, and heat bombs. Jalen showed Lyra a suit made from shredded alien armor, fit for a small body. "It's yours," he said. "You deserve it." She touched the shoulder plate. Scratched into it were the initials. "Lu Lyra, the warmth." She smiled. "I never thought I'd wear armor," she said. "You wore pain longer than any steel," Yalan replied. "This one is lighter." That night, a storm rolled in. Cold, hard, sharp. But Lyra didn't shiver. She stood on the cliff edge in her armor, staring into the night, her people behind her. Children who had never seen a sunrise. Men who had forgotten how to dream. Women who once cried without sound. Now they stood together, waiting for ships in the sky. But they wouldn't beg. They wouldn't kneel. They would fight. And Lyra would lead, not as a bed warmer, but as a flame that melted every chain. She stood in the cold hallway once more, staring at the only bed that had not burned. The one she had once wept in. The one that smelled like pain and silence. She didn't walk toward it. She poured fuel around it and lit the match. The ships arrived at dawn. Black and silver, quiet engines. No warning. The sky turned red with clouds as the sister empire's forces landed near the half-burned palace. Their leader was tall, armored in polished bone metal, and walked with 2 guards behind her. This was Vexera, sister of the fallen matriarch. She walked into the ash-stained court and found Commander Brax standing alone. "You're trespassing on sovereign land," she growled. Brax didn't flinch. "This land belongs to no one who builds beds from suffering." She sneered. "Where is my sister?" Brax answered coldly. "Gone. Burned. By the ones she enslaved." Vexera raised her clawed hand. "I will rebuild what was lost." A new voice cut the air behind Brax. "No, you won't." It was Lyra, She stepped forward wearing her rebel armor, the scar on her cheek glowing faint from the heat burns she had once endured. Behind her stood over 300 human, some armored, some barefoot, but all ready. Vexera's eyes narrowed. "And who are you?" "I was her bed warmer," Lyra said. "But now I'm the fire she couldn't control." The alien forces charged. The valley shook with the sound of heat blasters and human war cries. But the rebels had learned the palace's secrets, the hidden vents, the power sources, the echo paths that confused sensors. Yalin led the strike team through the tunnels, planting heat bombs under the enemy dropships. Smoke curled through the air. Explosions burst from beneath, and fire spread again. Not from alien orders, but from human hands. Lyra fought her way back into the palace, moving like a shadow. She passed the training halls, the bathing chambers, the silent slave dormitories, until she reached the one place she had avoided all this time, the original room. Her old chamber. The same round bed sat in the middle, untouched. It still had the same covers, the same scent, the same echo of silent screams. The only bed that hadn't burned. She stepped in. Alone. No one followed. She knelt beside the pod and placed a small fuel cell beneath it. As she lit the core, her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't need this bed anymore." The flames rose, licking the corners of the pod. For a moment, she didn't move. She let the fire grow. Then she turned her back on it and walked out without looking back. Outside, the final alien ship exploded. The rest surrendered. Vexera was captured. And the human banner red flame overbroken. Chain was raised fully over the mountain sky. Commander Brax walked beside Lyra as the fire from the last bed sent black smoke into the wind. "You didn't need to go back," he said. "I did," she replied. "The last piece of me was still sleeping in that bed." He nodded once. "And now?" She smiled softly. "Now I'm awake." Months later, the rebel colony grew. Children laughed. Humans worked together to build homes, not chambers. Beds were soft and warm, but no one was forced to sleep in them for another's comfort. They lit fires for warmth, not control. And the story of the girl who once warmed alien beds, but lit a revolution instead, spread across the stars.